So in following with what has been talked about over the last few minutes, and I recognize that people want to say both. Again, I want by applause, which you think is a greater threat to America's future. And by the way, one of the reasons why I do this is that you've got 140 people sitting up front here who are writing stories about this event. And I want them to understand you. I did a show of hands, but I think the applause is stronger for the people who are watching at home, and this is being televised live, not just streamed, but televised live. When you think about the threat to America, which is a greater threat to you? The collapse of the culture and the family, or the economic collapse and the manufacturing and loss of jobs? Which is a greater threat to America's future? I applaud who thinks it's the family and the culture. Just cut into 15 seconds of his time. I don't have to ask the other side of the holster. So, well, what does the next president do? I don't think you believe that we should be legislating morality, and I don't think that we should be asking by executive order. Governor, what should we be doing?
Well, let's talk about, when we legislate, we essentially do legislate morality, because morality is the standard. It's not the behavior, but it is the standard. We legislate the morality of speeding by telling people how fast they can drive on the highways. How fast they drive is an individual decision that they choose, and they decide whether they're going to obey the law or break the law. But let's talk about why the crowd reacted like that. Most of the people in this room understand that the most basic unit of government is not the city council, and it's certainly not the state legislature, and it darn sure isn't the Congress. The most basic unit of government is a family, a mother and a father and the children being raised to become the next generation. And those parents are there to train that generation to become the replacements for them. And all the basic things that we learn about how to behave with each other, how not to steal, to kill, to hurt people, to lie, we learn in that governmental unit called the family. Now, I know that there are people in the donor class, Frank, who say, I don't want to hear about this morality stuff. Just talk about the economy. I governed for 10 and a half years. And I can point you very specifically to the fact that the breakdown of social order is directly proportionate to the cost of government. We have a lot of government and the cost of it, because if people don't behave and self-govern, then we all start saying, let's get somebody to stop this. And the next thing you know, we have more government, it costs us more money. So if we want a strong economy, we need a strong moral fiber in this country, and we need people to grow up understanding that they have to govern themselves, or else someone will step in and govern them instead of themselves.
Washington inherently immoral?
Washington, the word inherent is the operative word. Not inherently, it is operatively immoral. Because what has happened is that the donor class feeds the political class at the expense of the working class. And the reason that we don't see a lot of changes between Democrats and Republicans in power is because the same donor class that throws the money at the political class expects the dance to be done, and it is. Why do you think that the Republicans, after being sent to Washington to fight executive overreach on things like Obamacare and immigration, went to Congress this year and gave this president more power on the trade agreement that 74% of Republicans opposed? Why did they do that? Because the donor class wanted them to. And so if you ask me, is there an inherent evil? It has perhaps become that, but it's the operational breakdown of people not understanding who they're supposed to be working for. And they're supposed to be working for people like the ones sitting in this room for the 5 million who lost their jobs in manufacturing since the year 2000, not just working for a handful of the donor class who then feeds the ruling class. And that's what's breaking down the economic structure of the country and the total lack of confidence that people have in the government that they now watch completely capitulating on everything.
I see the president as the commander-in-chief, but is he the moral leader of the country as well?
By default, the president always sets the tone. Would we be in this position with same-sex marriage if the president had maintained throughout his presidency the position he took in 2008 when he said to Pastor Rick Warren at the Saddleback Church that he believed that marriage was between a man and a woman? And he went on to say that the reason he believed that was because as a Christian it was in the Bible and God was in the mix. Suddenly, when the donors pushed him to take a different position, which he did, and by the way, there's only one of 3 explanations for how he could arrive at that new conclusion, since he said it was because of the Bible. He either was lying in 2008, he was lying since 2012, or somewhere the Bible got rewritten and he was the only one who got the new version. And I think this version right here is the only one that hasn't been rewritten yet.
So which is it?
The president certainly sets the mood, the tone.
Which is it? Was he lying in 2008? Or is he lying now?
Well, I know that the scripture was not rewritten, so let's assume that he was not being honest with the American people in 2008. That was not a conviction of his. He used religion, he used faith as a way to cause people to say, he's okay, he thinks like we do, when in fact he did not. Now here's what I want to just go back to. You asked what role the president has. Let's remember that when we were all in a funk after Jimmy Carter, we had a president that reminded us that America was a good nation, in fact, a great nation, that we were a city on a hill, a light shining to the rest of the world, that we were a beacon of freedom and opportunity. And he made us love this country again. I think sometimes we underestimate the role that an articulate president can make in changing the mood, the spirit, the attitude, the direction of the country. A lot of the job of the chief executive, whether he's a governor or a president, is to help articulate the vision and the message. And yes, I think we can go to a very different place with a president who not only says it, but more importantly, Frankie has to actually believe it.
Again, if we can line up any questions for Governor Huckabee, please line up in one of the 4 microphones. Then my second question to you is on what is happening in just outside St. Louis, inside Baltimore, around Cleveland, in New York. I don't remember a time in my work when the division by color, by ethnicity, has been so great. You are not only a man of political conviction, you're a man of faith. What can the next president do so that we don't have any more Baltimores, that we don't have any more New Yorks and Clevelands?
Let's remember that while we had Baltimore and Cleveland and Ferguson and New York, we had Charleston. We saw what God's love operated in people who take their faith more seriously than they take their offenses, who offer forgiveness instead of anger and hostility. The folks from the church in Charleston gave us the most vivid picture of what God's grace and forgiveness looks like that we have seen in a long time. We don't have a skin problem in America. We have a sin problem in America. without the government stepping in and making pronouncements. There is a prescription. Bob Vanderplots wrote an entire book about it. I know because I did the following. It's based on one verse from this scripture out of this book, 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways. Those are the conditions. Then he says he will hear from heaven. He will forgive our sins, and he will heal our land. I think people forget God will heal this land, but he won't do it if we don't meet the conditions for him to heal it.
Sitting in his first 3 rows. And I know that a lot of you are looking at your computers, but I will speak for about 10 seconds to get your attention. Knock him in the shoulder. If someone's not paying attention these first 3 rows, right here, take a look up, so you can't look away. Tell me the truth. How many of you in these first 3 rows here attend church or synagogue once a week? Raise your hands. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And there are what, 60, 70 people in here? I wonder if there's a disconnect when you speak of faith and only 9 of them, and even if they won't participate, they're American, they're human beings, they're citizens. 9 of them raise their hands. What does that mean?
I do think that there is a difference between those who often give commentary on our culture and those who are the representatives of so much of our culture and content of the country. I just want to say that I find that generally, I don't always feel like that even people who disagree with me treat me unfairly in the media. I'm very honest and say sometimes they do. Some are more responsible than others. And even when they do treat me in ways I don't think are altogether great, I never put them inside of a rope and pull tightly and hold them tightly away. I let them ask me questions because I don't think you can be president of the United States and not face the music not only of the press, but quite frankly, no one deserves to be president who will not go to town halls in places like Iowa and answer the last question in the world from people who
I saw some of you there. Last night at Cedar Rapids, you guys were in the back of the room. Here in Ames, Iowa, with this conservative forum, you're in the front of the room. So that let's go to microphone 4 in the back.
Hello, Governor. The notion that government does not legislate morality is a false assumption. If we even look at something like the tax code, which says it's okay to take from earner A and give to questionable receiver B, there's a moral implication. Government is about morality and saying what is right and wrong. So my question is this. Candidates have talked a great deal about our national security, whether it's ISIS in Iran, whether it's our southern border, whether it's the collapse of our economy, and the security that all of those things help us with. But the big one is, we've killed 60 million unborn, not killed, murdered, 60 million unborn Americans since 1973. Where is the security for those? And what must our next president do? Because this is a problem. If there is a God in heaven, How can he bless a nation like that? Thank you.
And it goes to the heart of what I quoted from 2 Chronicles 7:14. He can't bless our nation as he would love to if we're unwilling to repent. I know that is not a very politically correct word, but let's be honest. This nation has committed grievous sins in the manner in which it's treated others. It's not about abortion. I think we missed the point here. It's about the dignity and worth of every single human being. Do we honestly believe there is such a thing as a person who lacks intrinsic worth and value? The question is, are we really all equal? Our founders said we were. They didn't practice it very well for a while, but we've gotten a little better at it in some ways, and in some ways we've gotten worse at it. But the idea that we're all equal is the reason we have the opportunity to be Americans. But if we say that some people don't have worth, that some people are expendable, that they're disposable, if we say somehow that the captain of the football team has more value than the child with Down syndrome, which I can't imagine that anyone would be so brazen to say, we have said that when we decide that one baby should live and another should not because it represents an economic disruption or a social inconvenience. Because if that's the standard by which we judge the worth and value of another human being, we have certainly forgotten who we are as a country. There is no explanation for this country apart from the providence of God. There's simply no explanation for this nation. God, I believe, has a purpose for us. But we could lose that purpose if we continue to violate the very existence of life, of not just the unborn, but if we fail to give worth and dignity to those who are also already born. Life is more than just the gestation period. It's the totality of life from conception until natural death. And as president, I will vigorously defend life from the moment of conception until natural death. And that will be the policy of the United States of America.
Microphone 2, please.
Hi, I'm Greg Cummings with the Iowa Grassroots Coalition. My question is from the statement. The statement being, I'm sick and tired of when an elected official is asked about the border security and the sovereignty of our country, and they come back with the answer dealing around amnesty. My question is, without even talking about amnesty and the after effects, what can you do, or what should the next president do to shut the screen door, and actually secure the sovereignty of our nation?
I've committed that I will secure the border within the first year of my presidency. And if that sounds audacious, let me just remind you that 73 years ago, we built a road between British Columbia and Alaska. A 1,700-mile road in the most difficult of winter conditions. And we did it in less than a year. There is no way that you can tell me with the engineering capability that we have today that didn't exist 73 years ago, that we are incapable of securing our border if we have a president that says this is a priority and we will do it. And I will do it.
In the back, microphone 3.
Governor, one of the issues that really needs to be addressed today is education. Really can have an impact on the future leaders. So with Common Core and the new legislation going through Congress, what would be the steps for the next president taking to making sure that every child gets a good education, especially in regards to music and the arts?
I'm passionate about music and the arts for every child, but I also believe that the federal government has no role in dictating how education is handled. That's a local decision.
push a little bit further. You told us what the federal government shouldn't do.
Yes.
What should the federal government do when it comes to education?
Virtually nothing, because there's no constitutional authority for it. At most, the federal government should make sure that there is a clearinghouse of best practices, so that if a state is doing something that is remarkably helpful in something like music and art programs, to make sure that every student's talent gets touched, then other states could borrow from those ideas. But as far as the federal government mandating, look, I fought every day as a governor for 10 and a half years, promises the federal government made about education that they never kept, in funding for IDEA and other things. So the point is, those dollars should never be moved to the federal government anyway. They should never have left the taxpayers of that state, and they should remain in that state.
Having worked and interviewed people in every one of the 50 states, there is a difference in the schools, and I'm going to pick out 2 states. There is a difference between Mississippi and Massachusetts. The students in Massachusetts do know more. They have a higher degree of reading, a higher degree of writing, a higher degree of math. Is it fair to the students of Mississippi that year after year, they will never be as competitive as the students of Massachusetts because the schools aren't as good?
Well, first of all, next time you go to Mississippi, you better have somebody taste your grits before you sit down for breakfast. The second thing is the presumption that if the federal government intervened, it would make it better. Frank, my point is the federal government has been intervening for several generations, and it hasn't made it better, it's made it worse. Maybe let's let Mississippi run their own story.
I have learned never to fight with him. In the final 1 minute, is there a message? This is the most negative, the most pessimistic generation since the creation of survey research 90 years ago. You are someone of hope. Why should they believe that our best years are still ahead of us?
Is this my closing statement?
Yes, it is.
Well, then let me take advantage of it. So, 1 minute, I understand, right? Let me say thank you, Frank, for moderating this, and I want to thank all these people. There's a Bible verse, they that endure to the end shall be saved, and I think you got this. Presidents are not elected for what they expect. Presidents are elected for what happens that no one expected. For the seminal moments in history that no one saw coming, no matter how prepared and how studied they were. You really are electing a president, not because of what he knows, but what he can do when confronted with what no one knows. You're electing a person not only to lead and manage the crisis, but to articulate to the country a sense of calm and assurance, and give them that ability to recognize that the same God that our founders got on their knees and depended on for the creation and the sustenance of this country is the one that we may have to depend upon in that seminal moment when something of catastrophic proportion happens. But before that person, and I sincerely hope that you give me the chance to be that person, but before that person gets to that position, they have to get elected. And to get elected in this next election cycle, there's a good likelihood, Frank, that the Republican nominee is going to face Hillary Clinton, which means he will or she will face Bill and Hillary Clinton. I want to remind these folks here today that of the 373 Republicans who are running for president, there is only one who has consistently fought the Clinton political machine in the most partisan state in America during the 1990s, after they had built up that machine over 25 years. And only one person who has successfully not only fought against that political machine in every election and through the institutions of government, but who consistently defeated it and transformed it And most importantly, live to tell about it.